for illumined life to be birthed into form. I am the truth. I am the light. Illumined, beloved, divine.
So hello there everyone, and welcome to another very important video with me here today. I've promised you that from this point onwards in my life, all the messages that I will be sharing collectively here publicly on YouTube will be very much from the essence, the heart and mind of God. And as I was merging deeper with this essence of God and what I serve as life, eternal and immaculate in the collective field of cosmic Christ, getting to know more of who I am, what my purpose is, and what the purpose of my mission group is, I was able to penetrate much deeper into this reality, what it is, and unveiling all the false and deception. So primarily to detect these distortions has been my lifelong journey and mission. For those of you who don't know me, and perhaps you haven't watched my videos so far, those who are new or people, even though who've been with me for years, but haven't really grasped onto who I am and why I'm here and why my entire Illumined mission group is here at this time, I just want to share a little bit more on this purpose, right? It goes very much back into the core of creation, of the fall. That's why you see me talk so much about the fall. And during this fall, right, there were groups of beings who've decided to explore the so-called denser or lesser realms, the fallen realms, and they wanted to know how the fallen energy is being expressed. However, many of these souls have become themselves entrenched in this transgressed field, this hologram, that eventually got so bad and so distorted that many of these souls could not find a way out. They thought that this is the only reality, it is the status quo reality, and they basically eventually forget who they are, where they come from, and their celestial origins. Those of you who don't know me again, or those of you who do, but to see me in a new light, I'm not just a creation angel, Aurea. I'm many things. I'm very well trained and skilled in many things. Because of the reason of having so many missions during the course of my own light being self, these are not so much what people call places, but they're points of initiation. So advanced beings have different training skills and we use them in various degrees. However, the main essence of my work as a lumen being and a creation angel Aurea is the liberation essence. And there's a group of liberation angels who basically have, I'm just going to say at this point here, in a role in the planetary scheme of things, but collectively at the stellar level, at the star ancestry level, they have one of the biggest roles to play, because our mission is the most difficult and advanced purpose, because it does not only deal with, it's what I always say, it's easy to come in a realm, share teachings, and then go. And independently from that, you can move around and be free. You just come and deposit and then you go. What we do is we need to get deeply into the deception work, the darkness, and all that is entrenched, as well as the individual soul work. And that's why you've seen me talk so much about the fallen beings and the gray souls who basically are stuck in between realms. They're stuck in between their true self, their core self, and their distorted self. Our work, as from my team, has been dealing with these souls, and I've shared with you how years back when I moved to these Alps, God as the Divine Mother showed me a vision, right, through the hand of the Divine, reaching out for these souls, a very select few. They were rainbow beads, and most of them fallen into the sink, and just a few remain in my hand, and the voice of the Mother said, only these few. I know that personally, the mission that God entrusted upon me is to go after these souls, and as God said, bring these few back to me. I've never shared so much about this before. Like I said, I do work on many levels simultaneously, which is very difficult. For example, a part of my mission work is being a mission agent. Mission agents do work during sleep time, and we basically walk through different realms and we detect distortions. And that's why, for example, I often have dreams in which I would find a very dark scenario and then I would expose it. And as Illumined Masters say, once you see this, you expose it in the light of truth, as above, so below. When it is in this dark astral realm trying to be created, then you detect it. It cannot be created. It can't come and manifest or materialize itself in the world down below. That's, for example, one of the things I do. But the deepest essence, the core essence of who I am, I'm a liberator soul. I'm not here on this planet for myself. I've never been on this planet. I've never been a physical being before. Our consciousness, as I was shown many years ago, especially during 2019 when I had my first deepest Illumined awakening before the transgression happened in the transgression years, because I was so deep into my knowing and remembrance and my group and us working together as one, I actually saw, right, these pursuits and how they're playing out. And this Illumined awakening showed me as this force, fierce force to be reckoned with, the force of Aurea, who is so skilled in the training of the darkness that, you know, my role was always to jump into darkness. It's places where other souls won't go. It's places where even other volunteering beings won't go. So our consciousness, our level of who we are was never, as I was shown, physical before. It is a collective manifestation, and yet I'm an individual being, as you know. And that's why I always say our group. I work alone, and yet I don't. I am just an embodiment. Behind this embodiment is a collective consciousness that is very wise and very intelligent. And people who don't believe in God or don't believe in these intelligences here on earth, they don't know. So usually these are people who say, I see you and hear you speak, but I don't know what you're talking about. I have people from years back who are telling me just now they're starting to understand what I'm talking about, because the seed is going in slowly and gently. So the reason why we came here at this time, I've explained many times before, is because during this entire time of passageway of time, going through rings of time, the veil of deception was so slowly being put into this realm, so slowly, that it's almost like, you know, that joke with boiling a frog that doesn't even know, and, you know, because of its sensitivity in the skin, and then, wow, suddenly it's boiled because it has such a low threshold, right? High threshold. And it's very similar here, because this wasn't like a sudden change in alteration of frequency, but it was a gradual veiling until, you know, it mashed with human consciousness and this living organic reality so well that people could no longer tell. They couldn't tell what's real, what's deception, and we are still in these times. From our vantage point, what we were observing, and when they first told me the consciousness density we come from, they showed me we come from the 9th density consciousness, which is basically where sovereign avatar beings reside. These are completely sovereign free beings. They exist as one with God. They receive directions from God directly, and missions that we have are entrusted upon us specifically. That's why the things we talk about, and they're prophetic, they're not channeled from level of ETs who are beings that still hold physical bodies. We're light beings. I never had a physical body here in this realm. And so that's one of the reasons, you know, why people cannot always discern the frequency that speaks to them through this body, because people personalize too much the body speaking to them, and that's kind of a disadvantage, I would say. But our mission at many levels was to penetrate the seed of darkness, which was gradually being placed on these souls who once also ventured out as star beings, going on an adventure, on a star journey, on a stellar adventure, but somehow ended up being cut through, right? And these souls, from our perspective, they couldn't return anymore to their true heritage, their true state of divinity. And even that which was given to them now through this false light spirituality was a counterfeit. It wasn't the truth. I've often talked about the things I've had to witness when I went through transgression, and I had to go very deeply into the darkness, right? The things I saw and I veiled, I literally witnessed how the dark ones and the beings who are the fallen angelics in reversal to who we are as the ones who loyally serve God always and eternally, who've never fallen, who've always stayed true and loyal to the great Godhead, the principle of illumined life. It's not just source. People say it's source. Well, source can also be a source of darkness, right, my dears? But this is the source of intelligent life that is illumined and immaculate. That's what God is. They're also intelligences, but they independently wanted to create, and we've talked through that through and through many times. We won't go into this today. Just watch the previous videos. I've explained all of that. And this coercion was so deep that many beings saw it's getting more and more complex, so it was difficult to act. So during the course of events, many of beings who at a certain point also voyaged and they volunteered, they got intercepted, and they were basically put in imprint or an inception, which is a distortion of the true memory of what occurred in real time. They received false visions of themselves, like distortions of their lifetimes. So they were given falsehood of the lifetimes they were supposedly living or they had, and these lifetimes were usually very low. So that's how darkness works. They kind of catch these beings, and when you have a dark lifetime written in your encoding, even though it's an inception, you believe in it, right? You create everything from your belief system, from deep within your core. The moment that is written over your core, however, you can never fully rewrite the entire core, which is always of God. You have a distortion within you, and you can never get back to the true original self, no matter how hard you try, no matter how spiritual you try to be, how much you try to work on yourself, and especially for people who never even started working on themselves. They're just wondering and picking up data and information, but they don't make the move forward, right? To literally explore what's there. Because I always tell you, one thing is to understand darkness is there, and collectively, yes, universally it exists, the dark side of this universe. But one thing is to understand how it plays out in your life, how it manipulates you, how it enslaves you and keeps you stuck in the status quo, in the highly manipulated reality where choices and thoughts are not even your own. These are highly trained, skilled magicians that always send out thoughts as wave frequencies. And when you have a poor little me human self, all stuck with my thoughts and emotions, right? You're not a sovereign being yet. You don't stand a chance against them because they're really powerful. The only way to really stand against them is to apply the active conscious principle of I am the Christ. And it's very few people who actually started consciously now working with this and understanding they have to pull out their entire divine intelligence and not just bits and pieces. And it's been getting harder and harder. But without our input, without our breakthrough of our group, the work we do behind the scenes, it's all behind the scenes, the reality would stay stuck and it would only get worse and worse. Things are still not super well, but I've recently channeled how we are using the concept of unity or union. We're not defeating this dark energy, we're not cutting it off, but we are unifying our illumined intelligence of this, let's just call it this illumined 9th density self, this avatar body self, and our understanding of the principles of Trinity and divine creation, and we're unifying with it, and we're sending out a process of intelligence in which these two energies will merge. It's a more difficult path, it's a slower path, but it's more assured in terms of results, because you don't have any loss of data or information, which means at this time specifically, you're gathering in the input of both the dark and their frequencies and our frequencies, and allowing the divine work through in this divine alchemy of God, and just moving through. And in this process, the entire starseed family is collectively benefiting from this. That's just in a nutshell, right? I just want to say, for example, I've recently worked with someone who as well had a distortion in their let's say just like these signatures of life, or in their life book, which is the fake Akasha, the false light Akasha. And these memories, they're falsely put there. So when you access that, or you do a regression work or some sort of hypnotic therapy work, or just consciously accessing, you're actually accessing false memories, which is really difficult, right? And that basically is the main work we do. And when I show people these distortions, a lot of them have major breakthroughs, because you know, it's very hard if you don't know someone who's that advanced to show you. You don't know. So the reason why these souls, they couldn't wake up without our assistance is why we came here. I did not need to be here. But God entrusted this very specific mission upon us. And a part of this is the result of something I will be talking about today. It still concerns the split and this reality. But first, before we go there, and before I also read you a channel message from the divine, and share a very personal story with me that has been my huge training that I've recently just managed to complete. It was very heavy for me. It was heavy lifting work. But before we go there, I just wanted to put out there that please listen with your heart what I will be sharing. Don't just automatically turn away because you don't know what I'm talking about. the thing is that you have to know darkness works in ways that are very they're very unseen, they're very invisible. That's why they're difficult to detect. And a normal consciousness that existed on this planet for a very long time cannot see the things we see, and we saw them from the higher perspective. So it's the only chance one from this density comes and wakes up and does the liberation work. And in this process, these souls who knew that this consciousness and this intelligence will be here at this time asked for our assistance. They asked to receive this gift. They wanted the gift of liberation. We're going to get more deeply into that in the message of God. But I want to tell you that the way the darkness works is comes as a hidden enemy. And usually for beings who choose to grow organically, usually just before a breakthrough, let's say, the darkness or the enemy would offer them a counterfeit energy, something that's not of God, but it's of darkness. So it's been enslaving these beings for a very long time, right? With giving them false, illusionary things that they believe they're necessary in their soul path, and they never were, because they had nothing to do with God. In that process, their energy condensed so much that these beings became more selfish than who they originally were. They were no longer their beautiful diamond star selves. They became greedy, they became very much stuck in ego, ignorant, defensive, building up material gains, lifetimes of self-indulgence instead of selfless service, which is our true nature, star family, right? And even though we come from different realms, we have different assignments because we're different densities, together we're still one collective family of light. One cosmic family that lives through the cosmic Christ principle, okay? And during this process, because a lot of these souls believe that the inception was the truth, they've fallen in their frequency. So that means the christening of the cross of the Christ, and the burden, being carried through it, is when you're being cut off because you believe in illusion and you think you did something wrong. And some of them even did something wrong, but it was through dark manipulation. However, let's not put all ascribed responsibility to the darkness, as even masters say. It takes a skilled magician to recognize that you were never a victim, that you made all your choices and you made your bed. And some of these beings still chose wisely and they still stayed loyal to Christ, and others didn't. And others were more, let's just call them more vulnerable and therefore weaker. They lacked the kind of courage that you need to get through the darkness. And believe me, no one has fought greater demons and greater darkness as me in this life, as Aurea. I had to go and fight some of the most malevolent beings in this universe. And they're not to be messed with. And I know people read stories about them and you watch movies, these stories of masters that were given a shadow and they needed to somehow first witness the shadow, then it stayed with them, then they had to overcome it, and they released it, and then they became one with it. So many stories, but this is not just a story. Every master in training has to go through this. But several of these beings, they had skills that they had before, right, from their star families, from their lineage. However, their lifetimes as they are now, they're very, especially beings who are still caught in this gray zone, as we call it, they're still in between. They're lost in between realms. They're basically, as Spirit puts it, wasting their time, living very stagnant lifetimes, being stuck in situations that they can't get out of just because they lack courage. But not just the darkness that kind of pushed them there and manipulated to go that direction through deception, but it's their own weakness in the process that made them lack their own sovereign integrity, that made them have poor choices. And when you make poor choices, you get karma. Karma that these beings made with these poor choices. And I'm not talking about the young soul types that are still evolving with the planet. No, we're always talking about, in my video, about star family members, voyagers, right? Beings who were not of here. They came here either to explore, to master themselves in their own gifts, because you can be something in a specific, let's say, consciousness that's based on a constellation, but then you have to train your gifts and skills. And what better way of training ground than Earth, this 3D realm, which is where you actually put things to the test. Are you made of the stardust or you're not? Do you have it or you don't? Do you serve God or you don't? Or you serve the self and you're being stuck ignorant and manipulated yourself? And you say, well, darkness manipulated me. No, you had a choice. All these beings first have to realize, as I've shared in the previous videos, you are never a victim. Everything you do is a choice. Someone recently told me, I can't do this. What's really behind the sentence is, I don't want to. I don't choose to. Because everyone, no matter how dense they've fallen, what kind of game they're still playing and being a baby and immature or throwing a tantrum, behind you, deep within your core, is the potential to be a master. Everyone's potential is identical. But many of these beings were also traumatized by events when you get when you start facing your shadow, you will realize the shadow is a combination of many, many aspects. One is your previous lifetimes. One is ancestral lineage. You inherit a lot of these patterns that you keep on replaying in your life, and you can't just be yourself because of that until you heal it. A lot is from the childhood, and some things you gain during this lifetime. You're being traumatized if you have difficult lifetimes, but somehow, as a paradox, these beings have difficult lifetimes because they carry burden. So, for example, Jesus Christ calls these souls burden souls. They're not the same as fallen beings or fallen souls, but they're burden souls. So they're the ones we call the gray zone beings. They're neither in the dark, they're neither in the light. They're in the shadow, in between, so they're in the gray realm. But like I said, the time of the choice is now. There will no longer be this in-between area because of the decision of God to pull things apart. And things are being pulled apart, not of duality, but it's the sentence that I keep on hearing. Come apart in order to come together. Separate in order to come back together as one. And many of you are experiencing this. And as I'm going to be reading you the message, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. If you have a slight hint of, yes, this is what is really happening, and you're noticing this in your life and with the people in your life, and you're noticing the separation. And it's of God. It's not malevolent. Okay? I'm just doing a little preview of the breakthrough work we're going to be talking about today. It's very difficult for some of these beings also because as a result of this darkness, first, like I've explained, the past life experiences, inception lifetimes, ancestral lineage, hoaxes, spells, curses, magic, this all exists. Many of these carry through bloodlines. Curses made through blood. That's the strongest aspect of being manipulated because blood carries the codes of life, okay? And childhood trauma patterns and all of this. But the difficult part is because now, as a result of all this, some of these beings started now become their own worst enemy because they got so close off that they begin to traumatize their own inner child. They're not allowing their child to let loose and reveal everything that it held inside as the spark of life that is God. And they're not allowing it because they keep on being closed off and returning to this, what we call the rigid self, the stubborn self. That's not you. Those of you who know the I am teachings, you know that the true nature of when we really come embodied through integrity of God, it is the I am is the spirit, the soul, and then the body. The body is the personality self, 3 levels of the I am. But when these distortions were made for, let's say, an enduring long amount of time, these distortions that the personality held within were growing larger and greater, especially for beings who did nothing about it. They just said, I'm fine, I'm okay, I'll be fine. You know, that's the status quo. These were called, as I've read it in many books before, even the lazy souls. They thought, you know, okay, if something's wrong, I'm just going to ask for help. A lot of these beings, through the course of history of these lifetimes and cosmic history, they've caused a lot of turmoil for their family members trying to come and help them. But, you know, it's kind of like that joke. It's very worldwide known. It's universal. You know, when someone asks and prays to God, God sends them direct help. But they're like, no, I'm waiting for God to come directly. And they get everything and all the gifts are there. But they're too stubborn to take them, right? We've talked about this. And this rigidity is almost like when you can't feel a state of remorse. Truly looking at your life and the choices you made, because there's a difference in suffering with a cause, on purpose, with a reason. And usually these are advanced beings who come in lesser realms. When you come and you're a high intelligent being, you come in a lesser realm, in a density where there's still war, when you don't even know that state, but you have a mission because that's who you are, that's what you serve, that's your trained skill ability, that's your superpower, your gift. And you come, of course you will suffer. And there's a total difference between the suffering of the Christ, that all these loyal ones to God, and the Christ consciousness essence and the principle of life, they have to go through, and years, not just in this lifetime, but lifetimes they had to experience and endure. But some, even though all the suffering, remain loyal and faithful. Even Christ, Jesus himself, calls them the loyal ones, the faithful ones. My tribe, my sheep, my flock. These are the ones. Some are the rebellious ones. you know? And not only those, we would say the dark ones, the fallen ones that have rebellious nature within them. Many who now have been exploring the fallen energy, which you have here in this realm, it's an expression of fallen energy and duality and conflict and war. And they've become too much imbued with this energy, they could no longer feel their essence around. Their I am, soul, and the embodiment, the personality was no longer intact. There's too much of the distortion for them to find a way back to their soul. And again, this is where we come in. This is what the work our group does. And you have to understand that no matter how the soul wants this, and the reason why I'm saying this is because it's important for the reading I will read today as God's message, a channel message I received just yesterday, is it's difficult. These souls no longer possess enough willpower to make the shifts. For some it's easy because they were loyal, so they're just gathering, and their breakthroughs come naturally. And it's easy. It's also easy to work with these people, especially in my work, when I've done sessions with people for breakthrough work, some were very easy to work with and some maybe not so much receptive. It's, it varies from soul to soul. And it was growing very difficult because the tendencies of the personality outgrew the tendencies of the soul. And these are usually what source calls the stubborn ones, right? And the difficulty of this work comes in the right approach, because not everyone can have the same approach. Some people are very difficult, and yet still God said these ones. I'm going to return here later, but you have to understand when the power of the personal private will, the self-will that is the so-called free will, which is basically it's a distortion. We say God has given the beings the free will, the free will to explore this creation in whatever way they want. Explore it through God or explore it through fallen consciousness. Choose. And many of them said, I want to choose because that's how eventually I'll remember and know more about myself. Grow in my skills, yes. But eventually it got harder because the source has a specific timing in which the source of life calls back these beings. And if they're not replying, it means something is off there. There's a tangent there, and it becomes, like my family of light says, it's a predicament, which means it's difficult for these beings. It's very difficult for them to shift, because if it's their time and they're being called and it doesn't work, it means something of a distortion has outgrown in their soul prism of life or in their matrix, which makes them very difficult to return and hear the call again, right? Because everything in this life, in this structure of divine creation, is somehow woven together, and it has a principle and a plan. So going back to the idea of suffering, there's a suffering that is purposeful, which is what all illumined beings and all advanced beings experience when they offer their sacrificial services. And there's a suffering which is completely non-intentional and non-purposeful. It doesn't serve any purpose in life. It just keeps you stuck and stagnant. So there's a difference between beings who are being pushed by darkness because they come to serve, so the enemy constantly attacks them through spiritual warfare, and beings who themselves cause this havoc and this karma upon themselves through making bad choices. So a lot of these people now, because now we're in the karmic flood cycle, people are feeling it, and people who are going through the grind and are being very pressed, these are the people who are now needing to face the consequences of their choices. Was I really loyal to love? Was I showing this love? Was I honoring God? Or was I being self-indulgent and selfish? Was I being ignorant? Was I being focused on matter and material and money and games and how to have a comfortable life and, living a life of commodity and safety? What did I see? Wait a minute, my actions go out there and they influence other beings. We're going to get back to this as well. So beings who are now suffering without any reason, these are usually the beings that need assistance. And many souls of these beings have asked for assistance. And it is difficult because usually those who need assistance the most means their personality is stuck the most. It's very rigid. It's built up so much resistance, and resistance is simply what we call ego. I don't use that word so much, but it's resistance. It's resisting to life as it is. It's resisting to love. Many of these beings can feel this love, but they can't live it. They can feel it, it's pulling them, but no. And it's a constant on, off, and they don't know how to make the step because of this breaking point, right? So a lot of them think, well, I'm having access to my soul, but as God showed it to me, no, they can't. Because when your personality, that's the distorted personality, it's not soul-filled, it's not illumined, sacred flame personality, that's my personality. My personality is immaculate and full of integrity. But most of the people, as you can see, the actions and deeds of people on this planet is not aligned. It's not divine. We're all divine beings at our core, but our personalities, our embodiments are not all divine. I'm sorry. And it took eons for some to get to this point, and now it's kind of like how to get back. Again, this is where what I'm going to be talking about comes today. So because of all of this, the plan of action was written in the divine book of life. In the divine design is the book of Holy Spirit, the book of life. These are collections of words of Holy Spirit that Spirit speaks into life, and the Holy Spirit is simply the essence of life. It has nothing to do with religion. It is the essence of life that is illumined, that constantly needs to reinnovate, reinvigorate itself back into immaculate essence, which is the design of your primordial self, your true original creation self. And so these plans are illumined like agreements that are written there that we who are higher beings, higher intelligences, come here to fulfill. Sometimes when others can't fulfill them on their own, we have to act on their behalf to help them take the next step. So they will a lot of these souls have to take the first step. All they needed to do is take one step, and some of them were really stubborn. They didn't want to do the first step. They didn't want to do the first move. It was too difficult. They were too much in the known, in the familiar, and no matter how much the pulse was telling them, go, feel the love, live, just live. Personality comes in too strong and says, I'm not budging. Okay? So at this point, I want to start, before I read you the writing, with the beautiful vision, because just recently, as I completed the cycle, I was in meditation. We do our meditations every day now through the spiral of the cosmic Christ. It's very simple. We call in our illumined light team beings and guides. First, we reenact our sacred word of Christ that is divine, so that every day, whatever we do, our every word, every intention is encoded through the principle of life that is Christ, which means everything you would do and demonstrate or even say to another is of truth. There's no more distortion. That's what the Christ principle means. And it's a principle of life. So now when someone wants to say, I'm the Christ, they feel, oh, I'm not, because the Christ is Jesus. No, that was the huge distortion. In order to prevent all these souls to start using the principles of Christ, and even if you don't embody the Christ yet immaculately, you have to start applying the principle, because that is eventually what leads you to that embodiment, right? You have to start affirming to yourself, there is no greater power than the power of the Christ. There is no greater power than my word of the Christ. There is no greater power. And now I send forth my word of the Christ as illumined intelligence in complete alignment and demonstration of the principle that is God, as love, wisdom, and power in the ultimate truth of life that is immaculate and illumined. And now I thank you, God, for all your love, help, and assistance in all of this. Thank you, amen. Everyone should be doing that every day, and especially people who think, I don't have to. I'm fine where I am. No, everyone. These are the times. Again, this 3D reality will only get more difficult. And we had years back, Jesus came and he already told us. He said, for souls who will not make the cut in this lifetime, they will have to revisit this, repeat it, but it will be more difficult. It will be the easiest for those who will take advantage of our light dispensations at this time, at this point. But you see how few people watch this. How few people are aware. Where are most people? Stuck in the cycle, stuck in the looping. They can't get away from this karmic and the twin flame and on and off and yes, no. It's like so much looping. And who is that? The enemy. Who works like this? The enemy. Who is the enemy? The Antichrist. All that is against God, all that rebelled against the very nature of God, that is life, that is not just immaculate, but is free, it's spontaneous, it's wonderful, it's magical. And when you adore life, life adores you. And that's why beings like myself we have complete protection. It doesn't mean our lives are easy, no. But whatever happens, we have the backup of so many beings, so many intelligences that are backing our missions up. That people who try to try us and go against us, they will always get karma. I've experienced this in my life. People who've done me wrong, I would not like to be in their spot. I've witnessed it over and over again. Because God does not mess with this. And God says, don't mess with my children who are here in higher purpose and calling. Don't mess with my chosen one, okay? So don't. So listen with words of love and respect, because we're going to read through this message now. I want to start by saying that I keep hearing the same guidance over and over now for the past few, let's just say, weeks and days. And the guidance is all about homecoming and then the final time, like the time is over. And now, those of you who are with me, those of you who are not, I really welcome you and invite you to visit my Telegram channel. It's amazing because I now do videos, union videos. There are many readings, but they're always very much in alignment with the energy as it's now and potential. Sometimes it's playful. I do my Yoda bits as well, my sketch. I'm just so in awe these days because, like I said, I had to go through this darkness of transgression, but I'm more powerful now in my true self. And without this, I wouldn't have the skills I have now, because with this endurance through the dark, I managed to pull them out, to squeeze them out of myself. And that's why the experience is always the ultimate indication of wisdom. It's not just the knowledge that you have, but you need experience in order to get wisdom, right? And you have to bring that union of self to the inner child, which means your physical human self has to resonate with that which you are in the highest, right? Or highest potential in order to embody it. So I had to really endure, and I've gone through it. And because of this, I can now assist people much more greatly. I'm now really aligned with God, and finishing this final segment before the cut, before the split, has been a journey that for me has been of the last 2 years, specifically 2.5. But I just want to say this is coming through very strongly now, and I'm going to be reading the message and then further reiterating and explaining it further on, because I don't know how many of you are noticing this, especially those of you who are also volunteer souls. You're seeing the split happening between you and others. And I'm not just going to, at the end, share my experience and story as well, besides just this automatic message of God, prophecy of God, but also in a way to show you why this is now so important, to finish this in your own life, because things are being pulled into the new direction, as you will see. Certain timing, the time frame during this transgression years was an extension of the dispensations of light, given that there was a request on behalf of many souls that they want to also receive the gift, because they felt there's an opportunity. Like I said, and during my transgression years, I was somehow in frequency reachable to some of these, but now I'm very high frequency again, more than I ever was actually, and I'm laughing all the time. I've just got my humor back, and it's just amazing. I finally can really feel the master within me, and it's no force to be reckoned with, but it's also beautiful love, because I'm both an illumined master and just the essence of the mother, masculine and the feminine, and my child follows that example. So you will notice in your life the splitting apart, that certain people can either no longer reach you, or that you're frequency wise no longer available to them, or you just can't feel that exchange anymore. But you might still feel an attachment coming from some who are holding on to you, because deep within their soul they already feel it's separation time for now. This has to happen in order for the greater coming together to be, brought about, to come about. And I'll explain. Well, God will explain through the writing, not me. And that's it. So let us just begin, okay? So as I was processing my own cycle, and I actually had to go through some of the aspects that the enemy was trying to enforce. And it was actually using my goodwill and the will to serve, to be loyal and devoted, and sometimes to the fault that I over-sacrificed and over-gave myself. Also to people who were not worthy. They did not yet fully accept or be willing to accept. And it's difficult, like I said, if their soul asks, you can feel that energy always coming to you, but their personality is like, nope. And this is where most of the conflicts are coming from these people. Their soul wants it, but their personality is defending and denying it. And these are very complex examples, but most of these beings who are still in very hard karmic cycles, they're in this energy. So what the dark ones were doing with me through this manipulation, and remember I shared a video about inception of Illumined Unions to prevent Illumined Union, is they kind of put you in binding with very toxic karmic situations or people rooted in that. And even though for me that was my work, it was consciously agreed on, and it was what eventually gave room for that mastery to be cultivated fully. It's also, they were trying to manipulate me through giving me false hope, because sometimes my naivety was also kicked in, because my child is very pure, and I just get overexcited, sometimes overly too fast, because as a being, as an illumined being, I see a potential of each being. I see their higher potential. And when I see someone, I don't see them through the personality level. For example, I would say to someone, I know you better than you know yourself, and their ego would go like, how can you say that? What makes you think that? You're so much an ego. Do you think you're better than me? No, but let me tell you this. When a person is deeply in ego and they're not in their core essence yet, they can't see themselves. They can't see their soul fully. So a being who is fully unified with God, God will see this being, because God sees all souls, right? God sees all beings. They will use that being to see that soul and call them in. And it's not actually, when I'm calling someone out, it's not me. It's actually God calling them out and saying, come on, peekaboo, stop hiding. Stop hiding from me. I'm your maker. I love you. Come back to me. I recently just channeled this song. It was, through my grace, I'm calling you home. And these repetitive messages about homecoming, but not everyone will make the cut. So here's the reading. Please listen with your heart. Don't go with your mind and say, this is just something, you know, some person here is reading. So much depends on this right now. We are in a very fragile time right now because of the split. We're not here nor there. We're in between now. And this extension that was given made a lot of people feel very weary because they thought, but I already manifested this for myself. Why is it not happening? You're going to get the answer in this writing. But for others who had an extra opportunity, but they didn't take it, it's going to get harder now. Okay, enough of me. Let's leave room for even greater intelligence that is our beloved God. So, yes, this was during my recent initiation and a breakthrough. Time is up, I kept hearing. What was chosen, and what was not is not for you. I guess I kind of had to go through this, what I was experiencing, right, as a part of deepening my insight into not all that's happening now is for this time. It's all an advancement. Some things that we planted seeds for are for the outcome of something that maybe will be for someone in a different life, another life, or when they make their passing, literally when they die, right? They're no longer physical. They release their shackle when they couldn't make the shift here. So literally some souls received just the seed, some souls received the shit and they shifted, the seed and they shifted. And the third group is the souls who were very ready. They were the most loyal ones, the most devoted ones. They received the illumined seed, but they also not just shifted, they also will ascend, illuminate themselves as well. These are souls on the path of total mastery of themselves and reality. The only thing we had to do, right, was to uncover this lid pressure, this veil, this hologram, for many of them who were so close but couldn't see, to start seeing again. So basically, we're bringing them God, through God, we're bringing them back their true gift of vision and insight. Okay? So when I feel into these things, they affect me deeply because I'm a very deep being. No one loves to or enjoys watching these beings who are still suffering. Like Jesus told us once, he said, us illumined ones, we're watching from afar, like from above, and we're thinking, others are thinking, well, you know, they're just neutral, they don't care. They're very neutral because they have to be, they can't get involved. And yet it doesn't mean that they don't care, because all of them are very deep, they care deeply. It's not like it doesn't matter. Yes, it matters. But they have to just let things percolate, right, through God. So perhaps all of this process is also a deeper core wound of many, when some aspects of us as one cosmic family decided to fall and to experience the fallen energy and creations. This somehow activated a very deep family wound of all of us as one family when others decided to enter into separation to explore themselves through it. And although we came here now as the Illumined family and held our own embodiment, and many souls asked for our assistance in the remembrance and returning process, we could not do much without the consent of their free will. Do you see? And free will is basically more of a self-sabotage than an advantage. Because free will is only free when you're using it to explore and venture out in your own sovereignty. The moment you're no longer sovereign, free will is a distorted concept, okay? And when you're not free and you're saying, well, I have a free will. Yeah, your free will comes in terms of you are choosing to not be free. It's still will. But you're no longer using it from the perspective of being a conscious sovereign being of God and a master that always has a choice. So when you say, I can't, you're literally saying, I won't. There's no can't, right, in creation. Okay. We could not do much without the free will. We could only plant the seeds within these individuals who did not yet even step on the ascending spiral of light pathway. Sorry, the sun is very high up, so it's getting in my eye. We could only light a trail, but they would have to be ready for it to be received. Because some, right, had the seed right in their face, but they couldn't swallow it, which means they couldn't put it in, place it in their womb as a being, right? You literally are in the womb of the mother. But if you don't allow that new seed to enter you, if you're too much still in the seed of darkness that you've gathered during these lifetimes, you can't receive the seed of luminous light. There's not much help that can enter, not much life that can penetrate into you. Yeah, so they would have to be ready for it. Many had too widespread anomaly or distortion of their personality according to their soul. And if they did not choose to work on themselves, their distortions, the patterns of the unacknowledged shadow, which is like you need to face the shadow. Some beings were too afraid, they did not want to see in the mirror. It's like looking at shattered glass pieces, but you can never get a full glass view, right? Very tricky. So if that would be so, they would still remain bound and burdened. They would have to go through more lifetimes, but as beloved Jesus Christ already explained to us, these would only get harder and harder because also life on the planet is getting denser and denser. The easiest and simplest time to choose was now. Also, when illumined ones have our presence here, like we had in the time of Jesus. Illumined beings have projects. Each of these beings is not a solitary being. They carry out a mission of the entire group. You have to know that. What's behind me is an entire illumined group agreement and many, many written encoding. So, for example, I need to tell you this. Each light being is encoded by God through God. You work within you exist within the consciousness of God. You work for God, with God, on the behalf of, right, the divine life. Which means when you deal with souls that have asked for your gift, you have all the encoding. Your voice calls them out. Your eyes, your body, everything in you is encoded. All light beings are encoded. That's why people sometimes are magnetized. But at the same time, the enemy works to push them away so they wouldn't receive the codes. And each of these beings who asked for the gift, they had to receive from each specific being, like in my case, specific codings. Either a sentence, a phrase, something they needed to be placed in their consciousness to eventually override the mental programs that are just repeating on replay, keeping them looping and stuck. The enemy works in order to make them unsusceptible to this and make us unavailable to them because of this separation. So example, right, I explained in the Illumined Union Inception work how these tricksters come in between you and another person who's meant to receive your gift. Their soul wants it, but they can't receive it because there's always this third energy, right? The third party, which is actually a very high intelligent being, but they're not a God consciousness being. They're a fallen being. Okay, so the easiest time to choose was now. But the time frame was given through our light dispensations was getting narrower and narrower because you have to know, again, as I've explained before, everything in creation works through cycles of time. It's now near to impossible to pass through the gap, but from the perspective of God, or Godhead, the choices were self-made and the selection was neutral. All beings got the same opportunities. I've talked about this before, right? And now the karmic cut has to be done for those who are in the karmic completion cycle, which are beings who've already graduated. Justice must be served for all equally, especially the star children of God who are now stepping into their next cycle of divine union. All the necessary exchanges with all were made, and all was equal and fair in the process, which is the grand design plan as the central source intelligence of immaculate life. Again, not just source, have a source of anything, but intelligent life that is illumined and immaculate. Life that is both the Father principle and the Mother and the Child, Trinity. You come in that Trinity, right? And a lot of these souls I was shown, they're very juicy, yummy souls. They have lots of light within them, but so many barriers around. So many barriers around. That light keeps on calling them. Impulse keeps calling them to that life, but their life is not yet aligned. You see, their physical life is not yet aligned with that light. That's the problem. But you have to know, people say, oh, but when I pass, I go back to the soul, so it doesn't matter how I lived. No. As above, so below. Everything, if you want to be a master, you have to first, because you set out on this trail yourself. No one forced you. You wanted to complete the mission for yourself. So you knew that you have to be ultimately demonstrating all of this in order to come into unity, to wholeness of yourself. So it's not just, oh, I passed into soul and then I'm fine. No. You realize that your last lifetime will be perfected one. That's what ascension means. That's why all the masters were perfected beings at the end of the journey. Okay? So all these necessary exchanges with all beings who are meant to receive the gift were already made. Listen to this. No new exchanges needed now. And all was equal and fair in the process, which is the grand design of the grand central source intelligence of immaculate life. For some reason, I need to repeat this. Those who've made the final cut have truly earned it as they diligently worked on themselves. People who I know, either in my Patreon group or people who come to sessions, these are people who do the work. These are people who love working on themselves, who enjoy the process, who are seeing how much fun it is when you're breaking through, when you're realizing, oh my God, I'm a master. Look, 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 I'm piercing through the dark. These are people who are ready. People who are held back, they're not ready yet. Not now. And those who asked to be assisted but somehow couldn't find a way out were offered a time extension. This was the duration of this cycle, right? Which we called it the transgression years in my case. Well, it's not mine, but the all creation of life, which is one. So this extension, which came at the expense of those who already passed. See, it was difficult for those who already passed because we had to wait. A lot of us felt like it's union time yet. It was like, no, oh, okay. Our inner child was very wounded in a way. Not wounded in per se, but sad, right? Because it felt, well, I've earned this already, yes. But God said, now use this, what you've already earned in the extension timeline to now emanate the gift. And here's what I need to also share about. I had this vision and, oh, that's what I was talking about and I forgot. I was in meditation and then I started explaining my process of meditating. My beloved, my true spirit counterpart, my mission partner came through and he said, you've passed the test. You've passed the initiation. I'm like, what? And he said, it was never meant for us, right, here to be together like me. He's at the gates, right, waiting. He said, it was all about our luminous life, our immaculate love to be given, shared as a gift with others who did not yet know what union is. They did not yet come in this union with themselves and in their tantric union partnerships. And I'll be talking more about this on my Patreon work. And how this now affects or is being affected in the karmic completion cycle for all. So it was really beautiful and I cried so much. I had to release, It was really sad for me to know that, oh my goodness, we're going to see him when I ascend, but that's okay, It's fine because that's what higher beings do. What we already are, we then enter into life and pass on to others, as difficult as it is. The others now have to feel the sacrificial nature of this love. This is the love that goes and does everything that it can. This is how Aurea is. I go into darkness even when I don't have to. When now in the New Age everyone says, if this person's bad and toxic, walk away. Oh, I can't do that. If I have an assignment there, I'm gonna walk there just because it is toxic. If that's ordered or ordained by God. Because it's different with us who are here to assist, right? So this time extension came at the expense of those who already passed, which left most of them in difficult, frustrating conditions. They thought, well, wasn't it complete, right? Now the water at this time has broke and there are no more time extensions and delays. What was chosen, and everyone now showed themselves who they truly are. As of yet, their true colors were revealed to God. And some who were offered the gift but could not appreciate it or even mocked it or acted foolishly through their personality, right? Especially if you demonstrate foolishness to a being of God who's ordained to you. It's not going to be pretty for you. So they were taking it for granted with ego and pride will now only receive an extra dose of karma. Not because, they were punished. But it's how things are. God does not play around here. This is a serious plan we're in. Because they were causing drama and wreaking havoc on those who are loyal and true, and then fleeting the scene, like that. I always call it the Seven of Swords in tarot, being who's sneaky AF, right? Wink, wink. No, truly. Without any remorse. You know what remorse is? When someone feels like they've done something wrong at their core, but they're running away instead of really exploring what they've done. And, wow, I just have a beautiful butterfly here. Or is it a moth? I don't know. Just came on my rooftop. And there's a difference between feeling sorry or feeling remorse. Sorry is like, let's say you apologize to someone quickly. Oh, I'm sorry if I ever hurt you, because you're doing it because you think that's what that person wants to hear. You can't feel it in your body. You can't really feel, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, I've been a fool. And you ask God for forgiveness, possibly even that other person. You just ask for forgiveness, but most you ask yourself for forgiveness. That's remorse. It's not regret, because regret is, oh, that affected me negatively because now that person left. It's not the same, right? I've often explained this. It has to be your full being who feels the non-integrity that, you've acted through. So if these beings acted without remorse, their soul asked, but their personality was so stagnant, so stuck, and it basically caused harm to those who just came to serve them, that won't be pretty for these beings. I would not like to be in their places, seriously. They say all is fair in love and war, but even though to God it's all a play, this isn't something funny or to be mocked. Therefore, right, when you're foolish, my good, God sees it all. Therefore, even though God deeply loves all the children equally, God has had to pass judgment on some of these who have behaved quite irresponsibly with ignorance. For example, when there's someone who goes out and fights darkness for your soul, and you literally mock them, there will be repercussions, because they did liberation work on your behalf, and you're acting like a whiny child. How can that not have consequences? These are faulty actions, as masters have been calling them out in our sessions lately. They say these are faulty actions. These are actions of immense ingratitude, and they will have to be witnessed too, at least when the beings passed, if not sooner. This is done with ignorance. So it's not something the divine intelligence enjoys doing, right? Like passing on judgments. But it's the only way of learning from one's own pride, injustice, and ignorance. A lot of these ones somehow naively believe that all is well, as they haven't really done nothing, or haven't done something. But it's exactly that act of love, true love, courageous demonstration, and humility which they sinned through. So even non-action is an action that sometimes is sin. I'm not talking about biblical sin. I'm talking about going against the very nature of who we are, beings who are deeply compassionate. And until you learn that your actions, even lack of them, have the ability to hurt another being, then you're not yet divine. Because you're only looking out for your own ass, on your behalf. So many still choose to mock this truth and the prophets of God who deliver it in a no sugarcoating kind of way. And this way, they actually mock God directly. When you mock a person of God, you have to know God works through them. They're not separate from God. So literally you mock God. Because every divine prophet is the chosen divine one, and an angel on earth, or the Messiah, which literally means the messenger, right? The one who speaks the divine word and then demonstrate it in their own actions and words. They are actually the right arm of God, the extension of the Immaculate Life. Therefore, they're equal unto God within divine Trinity truth that they embody and teach from. Some were given many go-rounds to change. These beings were given like change or go, literally. And they have not demonstrated one single act of love, kindness, single step. People who come to you in circles and always come unchanged, always the same. Quickly in, quickly out. Once you expose the truth to them, they're like, flee the scene. But they caused the drama in the first place. You know how many times I was attacked by these forces that I was actually fighting for these beings to have their breakthrough, and these beings were like, yeah, sorry, not interested. I'm not bothered. Bye. And I'm not angry at them, because obviously they're not awake. They can't see. They don't have the spiritual sight yet. On your journey, you have to gain spiritual sight, which is the illumined cognition. If you don't, you're going to be like this, like a blind fool, right? And remember, only illumined beings can use a blindfold to act, to be not exposing themselves and their plans to darkness. But a non-awake being cannot use the blindfold. It will sabotage them every time, over and over again. So, yeah, some were given many rounds to change and have not demonstrated one single step. Again, this is not something to be taken lightly, because the light of the truth of God never rests. It's always creating and wastes no time. So if you're wasting time, you're wasting it for God as well. God is a constant creative beingness, right? And this is also witnessed and recognized as a passive offense. So you're not really offending actively, but even running from your actions, even if there are no actions. If passivity is also an action, it's also a choice. To not act is also an action. People don't know that. I didn't do anything, so I'm safe. No, stop playing it safe. Your integrity has to be aligned. And people would always tell me, oh, you have such integrity. Well, do you? Oh, you're so divine. Well, I'm not interested in that. I know. Are you? Are you choosing your divinity to act, to break through? Are you choosing it to watch and then hide? Peekaboo. See no evil, hear no evil. I always give you this sentence because it's so true. So it's still a passive offense from the higher perspective. So because people don't have spiritual knowledge of how higher realms orchestrate this truth, they think and nothing will happen to me. They're acting like little beings, like literally spoiled brats, to be, to be exact. And usually you will see them in their face because they're like, not me, and they're sure a lot, but their whole face tells them, yeah, look at your face, you exactly, your whole body acts like this. It's funny, sorry, I don't want to mock anyone though. So they're wasting, why is this also an offense? Because they themselves are wasting the potential that could otherwise be given to someone else. And they will now have to learn this karmic lesson in times to follow, or in lifetimes to follow. Many righteous ones of God who remain loyal at all times, no matter what came or was thrown at them, they always showed courage and, what is it called, animosity? I don't know. Well, basically your integrity. All these beings, and they were offering their sacrificial nature in divine service, have felt deeply betrayed as a result of this, right? Why are we being put in these situations then? Was their time and effort wasted? Were they an ignorant fool? I've asked myself this many times before. But God doesn't send fools on missions. Remember that. Not really, God said, because God saw it all. And he, she, beingness, that is oneness of all, saw the level and the extent that these beings, us, were willing to go in order to put others first, risking our own lives and embodiments. Even those who didn't show them any appreciation or respect, and yet God saw them, and God gave them mastery and honor in return. So they're now worth even more than before this quest began. The quest for liberation and the cosmic light family members. And it's now actually time for them and their gifts to be given and received by them. This is where the next cycle begins. With this final ending, no more choices. It's been chosen already. Everyone is in their places. Now, God is waiting, and so all the intelligence of the divine now is moving into the creation of divine union for those who were just and devoted this whole time, and who knew that first the unveiling of the dark has to occur in order for the gifts within the light can be received. And they will be received. Praised are all those who keep on moving with absolute faith, for they walk by this faith of God and not by sight. You walk like this. Once you have the light within you, the true light of God, you can walk like this. When you're awake, don't try to walk like this. Open your eye. See the truth. Don't just see it and say, yeah, I know, but then walk away. Face it as well. Confront it. Bless them all. Bless everyone. And so be it. So it is from here on to eternity. Okay? So for me, God has already shown me many things. God has shown me my destiny. I know it's beautiful. When I was transgressed, I didn't see it. But then my vision was back and returned, and God showed many things to me and my mother. But I was suffering a lot in these past few go-rounds, and I'll explain this now very shortly in this example I had to go through myself to pass many tests of my own wisdom and mastery, to not just be known, but to actually be demonstrated. But at the end of this, I was so exhausted, guys. I was so depleted. I basically now, for the last few days, have just been crying because there was this pressure of this unending, this unyielding energy, because it was like constant on and off. Will it be, won't it be? Will it be, won't it be? On and off. And I was so pressured like this. At a certain point, I just couldn't. I went yesterday to my meadow and screamed. I was like, I'm away! You know, my voice, when I screamed, my mother heard me to hear. Seriously. And then we had a mini discussion with Jesus about this, because literally I was shown it's over. It's done. I have nothing more to do here. And Jesus said, even an illumined being must decide on their own when something is to be done with and over. They're not to risk their own embodiment and health, especially for those who are not yet ready and they don't want it. And some don't want it. So again, illumined beings are very neutral about it all. But it's like, we have to respect, as Jesus said, the words on his free will and how they see it. And when they're watching, they're observing, they're showing many times, they would say to you, you would go and you would defend and you would fight for a being, right? And you would do anything for them and love them. But often these beings must place that love for something more personalized, something they can put in a box and hold in their hearts. That's good, if it serves a purpose. But when it's distorted, that love can't reach them. That means they're not ready. They're not ready to understand that higher love is not identical to this personalized aspect, or either putting something on a pedestal, or wanting something, or having, and at the same time feeling guilty when looking at this. I can't look this in the face, because I always had this with beings. They were mesmerized by me and they would say, I adore you. Oh, you have such a beautiful essence. But at the same time, the moment they spend a day with me or just I exchange a few words with them, they were thrown back. If they still had this unfazed darkness, they were kicked out so fast. You know, like cat on water, booyah, out, in and out. It didn't even realize that that's not because of me. I didn't do anything. Jesus told me yesterday in transmission, he said, you are pure. Your consciousness, your actions, everything was intact. You've done all your work. You've laid the seeds. You've laid the ground. And God literally today, when we meditated, showed my mother like a bowl of soup. And all my seeds, all my love, all the devotion went there. And it was percolating. And now at the end of this journey, with this being there for those who've asked during this transition time to be with them and to give them the seed. And I literally saw Aurea just a few days ago feeding someone like food, like baby. It's like nurturing them back into health because they were so, you know, so cut off from this own childlike nature to receive the gift of life. And I was like, oh yeah, we're in that stage. And that was the journey. But we cannot mistake that for our physical selves going all the way, because this is now done. For those of you who are volunteer souls as well, don't overdo it. This is it. Don't force your family members, don't force people in your life to change. This is control. It's rigid. It will keep you stuck to this. There was a prophet who saw, who I watch sometimes. She's good. She does readings. The only basically person I watch as readings. The only one I trust because they're about God, nothing else. And sometimes specific things I feel very aligned, and sometimes I don't. But either way, they saw this kind of karmic island that was being flooded, and only specific people who were offered, who were people of God, who chosen God above it all, they've sacrificed their lives. She said, these are people who didn't go and have trivial lifetimes. Travel, did this, did that, soothed their ego, enjoyed comforts. These are people who went all in. They did all that God asked them to in this lifetime. And these assignments were numerous. They were different. Variety upon variety doesn't matter. God sees all of us divine servants as equal. And only if you were given the boat to pass out of this island. And she said, don't look back, because people will try to keep you. People try to say, please, please stay, I'll stay. Because somehow deep down, even if their ego consciousness doesn't acknowledge this, they know that it's time to separate now. And if they didn't do the work, they're going to have more go-arounds. This is a merry-go-round. This karmic wheel is a wheel. And the wheel will keep us spinning until you drop the game, go into the core, push yourself up with the spiral of life. By the way, I finished all my spiral teachings now, the basic 6. And the moment I finished them, I started receiving advancements with the Illumined Prism of Life, sitting in it and creating basically our ascension wheel. Like it's your dome, it's your first home, and it's amazing what I've been getting. And this will now start this month, right? We're going to go now into advanced levels of this work for those of you who are interested. And again, this is only for devotees and people who have started doing life force mastery work, started working with their life force, started embracing Tantra as the way, the meaning, the principle of life, which means you're in constant flow of receptivity of life, non-resistance. Tantra is simply flow of non-resistance. You're not resisting any one specific thing, person, being, truth. And when you are, you know you have work to do. So get your ass, do the work instead of whining. When you notice yourself saying, I don't know, or I can't, ask instead. I want to know, God, please show me. I want to be shown the truth instead of running from it. Start working consciously, guys. And one last thing that I said, I want to share my own example, my living example with you, is that a part of this training for me is what God revealed to me. And it wasn't revealed at first, right? It was a union happened first with the soul. And I didn't see clearly first because I was still in transition during my I can't even say the words anymore, transgression, because it's so over for me now. But a part of this connection for me was learning how to, the soul that God showed me, God said this one. And I didn't know at first. I was getting very sidetracked, and I still had to fight these demons who were trying to come in between. Because why? These beings, literally, these demon rats, they're fighting so hard for these souls. And a lot of these souls, as I've said before, they don't know that somehow deep down within, they're special ones too. They have something. And that's why darkness wants them so badly here as well. But Aurea has come, that was last year in the summer. She said to me, that being, once, before this reversal happened for them in their lifetimes, in their inception, they already served the divine goddess, which is the feminine principle of life. They were loyal. And she said to me, they will once more when this passes. So I don't know why, because I kept asking. I was like, but why them? Why them? Why this person? Oh, because they're so, ugh. They keep coming back for more, but they always go and leave because they don't know what they're coming for. It's an impulse they're following, but they don't want to see the truth. And even my family, in my dream time, they were telling me they don't want to see. They're not ready to see. They don't want to see. And I keep on hearing that. And then I'm like, but why am I still called to do this and that? And it didn't unwind it. And I was so, I literally couldn't do it anymore because I had in the dreams, in the visions, and all this work I was doing. I was witnessing the hoaxes around them, the witch-like energy, all these things. That person was blind, he couldn't see all this. This soul was so manipulated by the dark. If you met them in the physical life, no, nothing. I'm fine. I'll be fine, they said to me once. I'll be fine. When I said to them, you're so traumatized. I'll be okay, they said to me. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Who acts like this? Do you not love yourself? Do you not care for yourself? And this is what the darkness does. It lowers your morale so much that eventually you just keep on following the trail of bad choices. And eventually you're so low you can't pick yourself up anymore. And I felt like Aurea has special love for this being, like deep love. And then I felt this love, right? Because I'm Aurea. She's just my spirit. And that was my quest, my mission. But when I passed through this transgression and realized that these demonic beings are trying to prevent me to get close to them so that I could spill my light codes into them and seeded them in a proper way, just to see them so they could once, when they're ready, start the journey of return. And they were trying to prevent this from happening, right? And they would keep showing me lies and illusions and distortions about this person. I'm not saying that person's perfect, because they're not. I'm not saying they're bad either. I'm just saying they're stuck, okay? And that also is reflected and demonstrated in their behavior, right? Always when I was doing tarot, Seven of Swords, the runner. Steal, chase the scene. Take something that's still very narcissistic and vampiric behavior, and when someone hears like that, and if it triggers them, if it doesn't trigger you, it doesn't mean it's in you. If it triggers you, it means it's in you. That's why it's triggering you. And I met that person years ago, and when I first met them, I didn't know. I just thought we're having a journey, we're hanging out, we're being, enjoying together. I was much younger back then. I wasn't yet Aurea. I was not yet consciously myself. I was still a beginner in this field. And there was this instance when I was just like naively putting these stones on them in their body. It's like, we're just playing here. I'm gonna do a little Reiki. And I don't know what happened. But suddenly the person cringed. They couldn't go like this. And I'm like, what do? I wasn't Aurea yet. I didn't have my superpowers yet activated in me. I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? I was so shocked. I was like, please. I was just like, please, God, help me. And they saw themselves like this knight in an armor, very stuck. And each time we went somewhere together, like we would go in the mountains, the person would throw up. And I was still in my ego. I was like, why are you throwing up, you wuss? I was like this, literally. I'm not like that anymore because I see things from Aurea's perspective now, not just like this blinded child, right, that I was before I woke up. I have my spirit side now back. But then I realized, oh my God, all of these were entities holding them. And then I remember meeting them again after 10 years or so. And I said to them, don't make me save your life again. And they didn't return any communication to that. But I knew what this was about because God showed me. And it was difficult because I kept attacking and defensive and back and forth because of these attackers, right? The tricksters. And what they were doing is influencing the behaviors that person ended up being the trickster. But it was them, right? They were giving me this false hope, like, yeah. So at first, they're trying to prevent me from having contact with him. And then when I did have the contact, they were showing me lies and illusions and distortions, so I couldn't keep on going. So this whole cycle lasted about 2 years, and I was so frustrated at the end. And now it finally played out because I communicated what needed to be communicated. And although I see persons not wanting to hear, as my family already told me, it was difficult for me. I cried quite a lot because I really care. But I saw a vision that God showed me that's much different. And then I didn't know what else to do. I said, God, I tried everything. I did everything. What else do you want from me? I was like this. I'm like, why do I have so much love for this being? And then I said, why, God? Why them? Why them? Because in the summer months, I was in my hammock and I was so bad in my shape back then. I was like, why do I still need to experience this suffering and this trap? Because I felt when I was in tune with this being, I felt their thoughts. They were like this, repetitive and cycled, right? I was like, I can't be in this energy. I can't. Because that's what Aurea does. She has to jump in this essence in order to liberate it. And God said his name. That's why. I'm like, no, I'm here for me. No, I didn't want to believe it at first. But now in the end, it played out so that I see it was all the truth. I've asked my team, I said, was all this the truth or was it a lie? And said, it was all true. You know, the tricksters came. They try to coerce it, show it as something else. But my intentions were never trivial. You know me, I'm a deep being. I was all about, do you want this or not? You want to face the truth or not? And of course, the answer was usually no. And for me, I will tell you something. This was the worst part, the heaviest job, heaviest mission I've ever undertaken, because even my own transgression, no matter how painful and difficult, it was still me working with my energy and my courage. But this is you connecting with someone, and you're needing to merge your will with theirs on behalf of God to make them take at least one first step towards the path. Because I've seen certain things that darkness did to make them believe they did something wrong to the feminine, and they were loyal to the feminine. And I then felt the fear because they were so impulsed to be magnetized by me and saying, oh, I see your essence, your divinity, but at the same time I felt like this. No. And what I felt when I went and meet that energy with my spiritual vision, I saw a deep sense of regret for thinking, I failed you, right? The feminine. And it's what the darkness did. And until that person heals that, until they start doing either therapy work or whatever, this goes for anyone, but this is just my example. What we do is just a seed. And then God tells my mother at that same day, because every time I shifted back into love in my tantric essence, this person contacted me on the same day. I'm not joking. Or the next day. Like, how is this possible? The moment I shifted the energy of darkness, the next wave came, and then again, and again, and again. But I had enough eventually. I said, I can't do this anymore. I knew I was already shown my next timeline, my next vision. I said, I have to keep on moving forward. I can't do this anymore. I literally was nuts. I couldn't do it anymore. I was like, please, God, just let this be over. But it couldn't be until all the pieces came together, right? And so this last round was very short and to the point. And God, the moment he contacted me, God said to my mother, he's like Aurea's project, right? This being. And I, as God, only trust Aurea. How she will handle this, because she's so connected to me. But then I was like, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? And the answer was like, nothing. Just be the love, be the truth, be the grace that you are. Keep calling home. And then God showed me actually a vision, how, if not in this lifetime, this being, once they pass, if it's not in this lifetime, they would see what was in front of them their whole time. And they go like, and I saw the vision, it was all golden light. And that's the moment they shift. And that's the moment because they shift, because they feel this remorse, they feel this forgiveness, they feel the truth, they're no longer required to do anything. But they say, because of the demonstration to their own self, they say, and I'll choose to have another life. Not because I have to, but I choose it because I want to now show myself that I can do this, that I can be just and righteous again, just like I was already. It was never away from me. I want to feel how it is when I have this in mind, body itself. This is why I said the last lifetime for most will be a perfected one. And then they can explore the new realm, where those who graduated are now moving into. It's a beautiful realm, that's all I can tell you about. So I was so much in this for the last, especially the last half year, was my heart broke so many times because of this connection, to be honest. Over and over. But you know what? Illumined beings are like that. Our hearts can be broken because they just are open wider and wider after that. And our hearts never die. They never close off temporarily. They feel pain, but that pain motivates us. It triggers us to go even deeper. And I know that certain beings look like on their surface self a certain way, but Aurea sees deeper, and I trusted her every keep looking at that soul and their potential. But that's all I can do from now. Because the steps have been taken, the initiations were given, the energy was exchanged to the maximum. There's nothing else to do. God said for me, it's just now to lay low, to heal my own body now, because each time I had to fight the darkness for this being, I was attacked. Just this weekend it happened again, a few days, and when I have these attacks, it's very difficult because my whole body is in electric jolts, and I'm just, it's so hard. And then I have to release this, and you would get a bump coming from their personality self, and your ego could easily say, well, it's not worth it for such a this and that. But God said this to my mother. There are certain souls that it's worth fighting for and worth investing in. But now it's their call to start investing in themselves. And like I said, when their time of comes, and for each and every one of those souls, just like everyone else who've awakened in a lumen way, not like, oh yeah, look at what's happening on the planet, I'm awake. No, you're not awake. When it's like, look what's happening within me, look at all this, that's when you're awake. And each one of the beings has a precise timing calculated in their experience when that will be for them. God simply said, it has to be a level of remorse, but not out of, like pity, or just saying, it was there all along. Yes, I didn't acknowledge it. Yes, I didn't appreciate it, but I'm not stuck with the feelings of regret or more. It's like, I'm owning it. I'm honoring and owning these feelings, and I'm using it for good now. I'm using it for good this time. I want to serve through my impeccable self. And there's 3 levels to ourselves that are leading to our ultimate state, which is the embodiment of the absolute Christ, which is purity, the state of being impeccable, and the state of being immaculate. So purity is when you're open and innocent at the child level. You're just open. Impeccability is when you're aligned, right thoughts, right deeds, actions. An immaculate state is when you're fully aligned with God as God. And God literally told me today in a meditation, now I'm in you and you are with me and in me. And this way no one and nothing can stand in between. Not anymore. So that's my final say, guys. I hope you enjoyed this transmission. I just really wanted to share this experience with you because at the bottom of my heart was this heaviness and pressure. I felt so, why like this? Because since the moment of that unification with that being, I saw vision. I was getting visions with this being all the time. Never as many visions as with this being. It was really a project of mine in a way, to learn how to be with those beings who don't know how to help themselves yet. And yet are defending themselves at the same time. My gosh, it's like, stubborn being, And I was asking God, why? And you know what God said that was after doing my transgression healing. I was no longer wounded, right? Because as a result of that, God said, when I asked, why this one? Why is he so important, right? Why not someone else? And God said, because he's the closest to our core, right? What is this emulation of this immaculate self, this illumined self, God self, and yet he's the furthest away from it, which means there's so many barriers and blockages that prevent this being from being back, or the homecoming and the return. But I already foresaw the return. Just one example for you, that don't worry about your own family members, whatever, right? Like I said, I kept having these visions, and sometimes you might get visions too, but sometimes things are still of the future self. So take them as they come and leave them as they go. It's most important what your feelings tell you in the moment, right? And that vision for me stays when that person, that being, looks at me with their puppy eyes and says, please help me remember, please help me remember. And we're in a car, and I'm like, I'll do my best. That's all I can do, is do my best. Of course, their personality will never be aware of this. Obviously, this was my experience, not their own. Honoring of all. But I do wish them all well. Not just them, everyone who's in this between, because I know it's not easy. And all of you who are working with people like that, or connected somehow with beings who are not easy to deal with, trust that you've done enough now at this point. Now it's time for us to receive our union blessings, the gifts of God. All the messages I'm getting, and even from other prophets, are the same. And recently God has told my mother that, in my own example, this is something I already foresaw. There will be a union, and God said this will be a union when two beings of utter and unconditional pure love come together and meet in the absolute space of immaculate love. So that's the next step, and I'm eager to unveil that, to go there, to go the distance, because that's the last stage of our ascension. But in all honor and all regards, for those of you who also feel you're having difficult experiences, just stop struggling, because I've witnessed people who are, for example, attached to their family members, and they started dealing with them instead of their own ascension. Our gift to be shared with them was never to deal with them, to monitor them or their lives or what they do or what they choose to do. It was simply to pass what was needed to be passed along, to plant the seed. It was never to deal with them. That's their own job and responsibility. No one is responsible for everyone. Remember that, for anyone. So when I see people who are like, yeah, but my family members, they do this and that, I'm afraid of them, I need to protect them. It's like, no, just love them. And I'll be loving you always, ... right? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this transmission. I think I'll have another video coming up soon about masteries, really stepping on the path of magician, self-mastery, and trickstery, learning how the trickstery energy works, how to deal with that, because I recently had a session with someone that was so beautiful and enjoyable. I was like really enjoying, laughing all the time. It was really good. And I'll share some insights, and maybe that will be next. But until then, I hope you join me on my Patreon page, where I do Illumined Union guided readings, and these are updates where we are as members of this collective who are fully awake. And don't forget, some people's reality is just not ascended yet. That's okay. And there's the reason of the discord between you and them. It's not love. Love was never the issue, but your reality and their reality are still a clash, because now the separation is happening, okay? And that's why these people will have it more and more difficult to reach you. But in case you haven't noticed, maybe some of you have, I've noticed energy shifting even in the physical dense 3D level. For example, we have this person, who's this guy who comes and helps us with the house sometimes, with things we can do. He's such a great guy, so nice. Always there to help and assist, right? And he's going through a very difficult separation, right, or divorce. And he's not even married, but you know, when there's children involved, it's still legal like that. And he's not really into anything of awakening. But he said to me, my life is my life. I don't care how difficult it is to go through, because he has a very difficult example with someone very rigid and stubborn, like resisting the separation. And he said, my life comes first. I just want to be free. And I hope that some people take this as cue. Like, if someone like that, who doesn't even know anything about spirituality and energy and life and God, if they can do this and they can choose themselves, what the heck? Everyone can, right? Notice these changes, they're happening. So there is God saying what needs to go together will go together, what needs to separate will separate, and only God has the final say. So when I finished my work, I simply said, I now surrender things to the higher intelligence of life, and just be myself and enjoy my life as I always do. And I will see you next time in the next video installment. I love you all so very much. I hope you enjoyed it again. So much love, wisdom, and power. And thank you for those of you who've donated or will donate or have been thinking of. Thank you so much. I just want to thank you. And in any way, shape, and form of how we can meet, I'm honored to know you and to serve you and to serve God. Blessings to all. Bye for now.